our starting point and our ending point. Who cares what is happening here?
I've been doing things that they told me I should never do. I've been doing things that they told me I could never do now. Never do, I could never do. I've been looking back and I'm the only one who ever knew. My dreams began to turn out.
Hey everybody, Krysten Jansen here. Thank you so much for tuning back into my channel. Today I want to talk about some things that I've been talking about a lot lately. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you guys know that lately I have been talking about the issues with scale weight fluctuations. This is something that I talked about with my Natty Hour athletes this morning, and I thought it provided a lot of value to them, so I wanted to discuss it today with you. So we have our handy dandy whiteboard. I really enjoyed talking to you guys standing up and writing stuff down and actually teaching. I felt more interactive versus just sitting down. So I'm gonna try to do more talks like this where it's a little bit more interactive. So without further ado, let's get into today's discussion. I have found that this time of year that a lot of people are really getting hung up on scale weight fluctuations. And I think it's because we're all so motivated. We have such high standards, we have such high goals for this year that when we see progress, what is assumed to be slow, it can be a little bit frustrating, demotivating, and I totally get it. But today I just want to talk about why I don't think that it's completely accurate to use the scale on a short-term basis for measuring progress. And the reason for this is because the scale fluctuates day to day. I want you to get that ingrained into your head. So many people are messaging me right now saying that the scale is fluctuating and it's demotivating, and girl, I get it. The scale this morning, I jumped on it and it went up 0.2 pounds, and instantly I was like, fuck, come on you guys, like I've been working my butt off, but I have programmed myself to like stop and catch myself when I think this way and literally say to myself, it is completely normal. Day-to-day fluctuations are completely normal. If it is in a linear line throughout your entire journey, this is abnormal. The scale should not be going down steadily like this throughout your journey. That's not normal. That is completely abnormal. So I'm going to quickly show you guys what we expect and what actually happens. You may have seen this graph before on the gram. It's pretty popular. So we have two graphs, right? Y and x-axis. This is most people's expectations. Can I spell? Yes. And this is exactly, actually, what happens. So here we have our time and we have our body weight. Body weight, time. So this is what people expect happens. The scale is gonna start super high and go down super low. And this is our ending point over time. Nice, linear, pretty line in a perfect world. What actually happens is we have our body weight starting here, and it goes like this, and that, and this, and that, and oh, it's gonna go like this and that, and da 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 da, until we get there, our ending point. Notice something similar about these graphs? Our ending points are in the same spot. So who gives a shit what happens in between our starting point and our ending point? Who cares what is happening here? These fluctuations are completely normal. We have to get it out of our heads that this situation here is never, ever, ever going to happen. It's never gonna happen. And we have to keep that in the back of our minds before we let our minds travel where we like end up in this negative pool of pessimism where it's ruining our entire days when it's something that has never happened before. It's like getting upset about something that is absolutely absurd that will never, ever, ever happen. It won't. So, having said that, I still think it's important to understand why the scale is fluctuating. So when you see it fluctuate like this, you can take it as an opportunity to learn your body, learn what is going on, and understand why the scale might have fluctuated. And I think it's going to allow you to be in a better state mentally versus just getting so upset that it ruins your day. So a few things that cause the scale to fluctuate. Carb increase. When your carb consumption increases, this causes you to retain, I think it's about 2 to 3 times that amount in water. So when your body isn't used to a certain amount of carbs and you increase your carbs, maybe due to a refeed or a cheat meal, or maybe you were just kind of all over the place because you're not tracking anything, or maybe you go out for dinner and you have more carbs then, this carb increase causes your body to retain water because your metabolism isn't used to that amount. So it's so important when you see the scale go up to analyze if you have had an increase in your carbohydrates. Maybe you started with a new coach and they gave you an increase in your carbs. I do that a lot with my clients in the beginning because what we're trying to do is prime their metabolism for a fat loss phase in the future, that this increase in carbs causes them to retain water. That doesn't mean that you've gained actual fat. Next reason, sodium. Particular, an increase in your sodium. Sodium gets a bad rap. Sodium is not inherently bad for you and you can have large amounts of sodium. But when you see an increase in your sodium consumption, maybe you kept your macros the same, but you went out to a restaurant and even though you hit your macros, that meal that you might have had at a restaurant could have been loaded in way more sodium than what your body is used to. So you've had an increase in your sodium consumption that we don't normally track day to day as strictly as we do with our protein, carbs, and fats. So when your body sees an increase in your sodium consumption, again, it is going to retain water, not an actual indicator that you gain legitimate fat. Again, you're just retaining water due to an increased amount of sodium that your body is not used to. Okay, the next one, for us ladies, this one is huge. Did I spell that right? Cycle. The worst speller ever. But our menstrual cycle, ladies, we all know this. We've experienced this for years. As soon as our period starts to come, what happens? We bloat like crazy. I have seen clients of mine who have bloated up to about 5 to 10 pounds depending on their situation. It's completely normal. So because of that, I honestly really think that for us ladies, we need to actually measure our progress when it comes to scale on a month-to-month basis. Guys can get away with week-to-week comparisons to make sure that they are actually making progress. But for us ladies, measuring week 1 to week 2 is not as accurate as measuring week 1 of month 1 to week 1 of month 2. Because our menstrual cycles, they run on a 4-week cycle, that comparing week-to-week progress is not as accurate as comparing month to month. It's all very individual. Some people fluctuate more than others, so you need to be aware of that. So use that as an opportunity to understand how much you might fluctuate when it is that time of the month and get used to that. Mentally prepare yourself for that. When that time of the month is approaching, you can expect to see the scale go up. Be okay with that. Okay, next we have sleep and stress. I think these two variables right here are really underrated. People aren't taking into account the amount of sleep that they are having and their stress levels. It does seem to be that we are living in a more anxiety-driven world. Everybody is extremely anxious and stressed out all the time. I totally get it and I sympathize with that. I think that we need to try to have an approach in line where we are making a valid effort to manage our sleep and our stress, because these do affect our metabolic rate and it is going to cause the scale to fluctuate when we aren't getting enough sleep and our cortisol levels are through the roof. It's so important to make sure that these two things right here are not taken for granted and we are doing the best that we can at being aware of them and trying to improve on them. Okay, and there's 3 final things that I think that will affect the scale. There's other things to consider as well, but these are the main ones to consider. The last 3 things that we'll touch on today. And this last reason is the most annoying reason of them all. For no reason at all, if you guys can read that. So if we're sick, alcohol, and no reason at all. Of course, when we're sick, it's very difficult to ensure that we're eating the same amount of food and the same types of foods. So for reasons that we discussed earlier, like your carb increases, your sodium changes, that's gonna affect your nutrition when you're sick. Therefore, you're gonna see some scale fluctuations. Alcohol kind of does the opposite because it dehydrates you, so it's going to help release some water. And the last one, sometimes there's no reason at all why the scale fluctuated. It can be a combination of all of these things. It can be different things paired together Maybe you thought you were getting a good sleep, but you actually weren't. Maybe you thought you had your stress management under control, but you had some underlying stress that you didn't even notice. So it's extremely difficult to determine why the scale always fluctuates. But I think understanding these factors right here, it's just gonna really allow you to mentally prepare yourself when you see the scale fluctuate. So like I said, you guys, make sure that you change the narrative in your head. Don't let the scale weight fluctuation ruin your day. It's something that's completely normal, and as you can see, we talked about so many factors here that will cause the scale to fluctuate. Don't let it discourage you and make you feel like a failure just because you saw a fluctuation in the direction that you're not too happy about. As long as you just stick to the process and remember that stressing over the scale alone is doing more damage because it's increasing your cortisol levels, right? We want to get that under control. If you just follow a program that you enjoy and you can stick to over time, the scale is gonna move in the right direction. Just like our graph from the beginning. You're gonna see the scale go up and down. Over time, the end result's gonna be the same. So be patient, my friends, okay? Well, that about wraps up this week's video. I hope you all found it helpful. Please leave a comment down below. Let me know if you have any questions. I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. Send me an email, Krysten@THENATTYHOUR.com, or like I said, just comment them down below. I look forward to chatting with you all next week in next week's video. Until then, go out there, strive for more, be more, and ignite your inner athlete. Thanks, you guys. I'm Krysten Jansen. Talk to you soon.